The 9 Years Podcast.
All right, welcome to episode 49 of the 9 Years Podcast here on iTunes, YouTube and 9yrspodcast.org. I am Nick Draper, accompanied, as always, by Stuart Deakins. Stu, we've got a few loose ends to tie up at the start of this week's show, our second of the new season, but a few things we didn't touch on last week about the end of last season, and we've had a few queries and comments asking after these things. So, first things first, as opposed to first things third. Stickers. Our sticker book collections for Euro 2016. They are no longer available. You cannot buy any more packets of stickers. Well, if you can, and you know of somewhere I can buy them, please let me know, because I can't find any. So I've had to stop my collection well short of the 680 stickers you need to fill the book. Stu, do you know how far you got with your collection?
Well, considering I didn't start as quick as you did, to be fair, I probably was about a week or 2 weeks behind you. I'm not sure. I don't even think I got 10%. But the 10% I did have was quite a good 10%, I think.
How'd you work that out?
Well, I had quite a lot of shiny ones. Is that what you call them? Or the silver ones?
Yeah, shinies, yeah.
Yeah, the shinies. That's what I used to call them when I was younger. But then, to be fair, when I was younger, I remember we used to play marbles. And then we used to play marbles, and then whoever won could sometimes take the best stickers. So, did you ever play marbles at school, Nick?
It was a little bit after my time, Stu, but, I suppose games like marbles helped you out when you had to go into the air raid shelters. They helped pass the time, didn't they?
They did. I used to love the game marbles, but anyway, we digress. But I think about 10%. I think, yeah.
Yeah. So 10%, Stu.
It's about 60.
It's 68 stickers. Rubbish.
Yeah. I just wanted 10% sounded better, but actually no, it doesn't, does it?
It doesn't. I actually did count. I got to 310 roughly. So I didn't make it halfway. So it was less than 50%. But 310 in my book. How many swaps do you think I managed to accumulate over the, 6 to 8 weeks I was collecting?
Judging by the way Panini normally works, I would say you probably got a good 40, 50 swaps.
110.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
So that's pretty much a third. So for every 3 stickers that went in my book, 1 went into my swap pile.
It's
ridiculous.
Crazy. They also have the favourite one. They also have their favourites, don't they? So for argument's sake, you might do Eden Hazard and do about 5 of him, and then do one of the other ones. So you've got about 5 Eden Hazards, and no one wants 5 Eden Hazards, do they, really?
No one wants 1 Eden Hazard. I did, however, have 5 Costel Pantilimons.
Cool.
Which was, great. Oh, also, shinies. I didn't get any shinies.
He's about 6 for 8, so yeah, 5 6 for 8s.
5 6 for 8s, yeah, I know. I'm struggling to fit him in the apartment, really. It's a small flat I've got here, as you know. Shinies, I didn't get... Shinies, I got about half a dozen. I'm starting to think they weren't... I thought you've done well with your shinies, because I've got barely any.
Yeah, I was quite pleased with the ones I got, but it was good. But I don't know whether we're going to start doing... Do we want to do the Premiership ones? Do they do a Premiership one anymore?
I'm sure they do, but do you know what I'm thinking? Instead of doing Premier League stickers, because we've sort of done Euro 2000, we've done the football... We know they're very similar, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
How about we do the WWE sticker album instead?
Oh, dear. Well... Do they do a WWE sticker album?
I don't know. They did when I was younger. I don't know if they do anymore, but there must be one.
That's many years ago, Nick. To be fair,
not that many. I'm only 24.
Well, no, yeah, you stopped counting years ago. I'm sure we can have a look.
I'll have a look into it. The other thing we had to tie up is the hobnob. Do you remember with this? I said it takes about 30 seconds for me to eat a complete entire hobnob.
Was that what we were just trying to fill time at the end of last season?
No, we never do that. We never just fill. We never just pad. We've been talking for about 4 minutes yet, but this has been top quality A-list material.
Okay, the hobnob. Yeah, I sort of remember the hobnob story.
Yeah, so I said I could probably put it on Twitter or YouTube or whatever, me showing you that I can eat a hobnob in 30 seconds. This week, I will do so. And follow us on all our social media channels. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Just search for @9YRS Podcast, as well as 9yrspodcast.org.
So whilst Nick is not doing pre-season, he's going to be doing a hobnob challenge while the rest of us are going to be watching some proper football.
Proper football?
Well, football.
Football.
Hi, I'm Adi Aziz, and I listen to the podcast more regularly than I get caught offside.
We shall be discussing the Reading pre-season friendly from last week. Any reaction to the Crystal Palace friendly from last night, and you can probably sense, if you can read between the lines, what we're on about here. reaction to that will be on 9yrspodcast.org and all our social media channels as well. You can probably infer when we might be recording this.
Why put a game on Wednesday night? Why put a game on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock? What's that all about?
I think it's the club deliberately trying to sabotage our podcast.
Well, they've had a good go this week.
They've done well. So we will be talking about that Reading pre-season friendly. We'll look ahead to the friendlies that are coming up. We've got 2 games in consecutive days, Woking and Dagenham and Richmond away. So we'll have a quick look forward to that. Main theme for today's show, we'll be talking about the EFL Trophy, the draw for which was made yesterday morning, at long last. We hadn't heard anything about the EFL Trophy for weeks. And then it was announced on Tuesday that the draw was being made. The group stages draw has been done. All the details you can check out on all our social media sites and everything like that. Of course, we'll also have the second edition of our Poleon Go game, which got a good reaction on social media in the week. But we shall start with the Reading game from, I'm losing track of days when it's in the summer holidays, last Saturday. Stu, quite a bit to talk about, really. Let's start with the starting 11. How did we line up? What formation did we go for? What clues can this tell us about when we go to Warsaw on the opening day?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. To be fair, I missed the first goal because I was trying to see who was playing right back. Because when we put the first lineup up, it was obvious that we had 3 centre halves. And I lost, to be fair, because I thought we were going to play Darius at right back, but we didn't. We played Will Nightingale out at right back, and then played Sweeney and Darius as centre half pairing. So the formation, it looked like a 4-4-2, although I would say Whelpdale played wide right, Bully and Jake Reeves in the midfield, and then Parrott was out at left. But he wasn't really a wide left Parrott. He looked like, to be fair, he was probably just, whenever we had the ball, he was coming from some wide into central areas, which is where he got his goal in the end. But when we defended, he basically provided cover for Sean Kelly. So it was a weird one to read. It was a very flexible formation. And like I say, Parrott's probably not a natural wide left player, but I think that's where we may start playing him, or we can play him in behind the front two. He's an interesting player. Him and Whelpdale have impressed me massively in pre-season already. And whilst it's only pre-season, you can definitely see what qualities they're going to give our midfield, and also the competition they're going to provide to George Frankham and Andy Barsham this year.
So do you expect that they'll be in the starting 11 come the opening day? Do you think they're our first choice now?
Well, Whelpdale will be first choice because of the fact that George is obviously coming back from an injury. Andy Barsham, he has that. To be fair, Andy Barsham, we said all last year, didn't we, Nick, that he needed competition for that place, and he really didn't have it. I think David Fitzpatrick was the plan to give him some competition, but that never really materialised from him. But I think Barsham has looked actually quite sharp when he's played. Obviously, at the moment, they're playing 45 minutes, 60 minute stints. So at the moment, very difficult to know what is a first team. That will probably materialise once we get the Woking game out of the way and Dagenham and Richmond game out of the way. We probably will have a better idea. But I think at the moment, we've got a good mix in that midfield area. Hopefully, Tom Beer looks like he's had a good pre-season. And what I mean by that, I heard through the grapevine that Tom doesn't refuel. Let's put it that way. Doesn't refuel well in terms of he just needs to look after his body and be a professional footballer. It doesn't mean he's off the rails by any stretch of imagination before people think that. But I think Tom has all the attributes to be a very, very good footballer, but just needs to get that fitness and that sharpness. And he's come back and looked very good. So if we could have him in the mix, then we've got some interesting dilemmas for Neil in the season. During the season,
yes, we're in the summer right now. Sean Kelly, then, have we signed him? Are we, at time of recording, this is, of course?
At time of recording, I've just looked at a Dons player, and Neil said he's gone back to Scotland, probably just to... I think he's been tried in quite a lot of places, so he's gone back to Scotland, and I'd imagine that is probably just to work out if he can. I'd imagine he wouldn't come trial. He wouldn't have been on trial south of the border if he didn't think he could move. I'm not too sure how old he is. He's probably mid-20s. So we don't normally sign players that have to relocate. And he's Scottish, is he? So whether he has family down the south, I don't know. It's difficult. So you have to look at that one to see whether actually the finances we can offer fits what he wants. But I think if we can get a deal over the line, that's reasonable for us, then I think we will sign him.
So we had James Shea in goal on Saturday. Obviously, we've got competition there with Ryan Clark, our new signing. As you've gone through, midfield's looking pretty strong, lots of options. Defence got lots of options in there. Forwards then. Dominic Poleon scored on the weekend. We've obviously still got Lyle Taylor and... How did I say that? Lyle Taylor, there we go, and Tom Elliott.
Yes.
Do we need a fourth striker? And if we do, are we likely to sign anyone, or are we now looking at this stage, probably looking at getting a loanee in, bearing in mind we've not really dipped into the loan market yet, or don't appear to be, given that we've got a few more restrictions on the loan market this season, don't we?
Yeah, I think the answer to your first question is yes, we desperately do need to have a striker. If you look at the moment, we've got Dom, we've got Lyle Taylor, Tom Elliott, and then we've got obviously George Oakley coming back from an injury, but we can't really say we've actually George Oakley is League Two standard because of the injuries the poor bloke's had. So whether we can say he can fit in a League One, we don't know. And Tosi is a great talent, but I wouldn't expect him to be one that he's probably going to be a full fifth choice striker this season. Things that I heard probably was that we wouldn't go for a loan striker. We weren't going to look very much to get a forward in on our, on contract. But Neil Ardley's obviously been quoted quite heavily saying that he's been surprised of what the budget is like in terms of what is out there and actually what we've got to compete against. It's interesting because I was looking at some forums. I go on a few League One forums, and everyone's talking about forwards. It looks like that all League One, most clubs are still looking for forwards. But there was a rumour on one of the League Ones. I say rumour, so don't take it as gospel. But a striker like Hansen at Bradford City is on $4,500, apparently wage-wise, who I would class as a striker we would probably be looking at sort of type of mould. But whether we could afford $4,500 is another story. So I think the more closer we get towards the start of the season, the more possibility of loan signing will be what we need. But we've been through that before, haven't we?
Yeah, well, I think it seems to be every year we have a lone striker and it backfires in one way or another. Obviously, last season being the exception. Obviously, if anything does get done, we anticipate what are we? We're less than 2 weeks away now, aren't we? We're only about 10 days away from the start of the season. So if Neil feels like we do need someone in that position, I imagine something will get sewn up over the course of the next week or so. Last thing I wanted to chat to you about pre-season is the Kingsmeadow pitch. It was Reading was our first pre-season friendly at home. Few comments regarding some problems with the surface. Yeah,
well, the Kingstonians had a friendly against Sutton United earlier in the week, and there was some comments from Sutton United saying that they took their friendly because they knew the quality of the pitch was always good at Kingsmeadow, and they came away very disappointed with the pitch. So it was very long, the grass. But then they have an all-weather pitch now, don't they? So
yeah,
they have a pitch all year round. So they're cheek to moan, really. I'm only joking. But one of the things I noticed was it was very long. That's probably just to protect the pitch. But I don't. Yeah, I get a feeling that we're not happy with the pitch. I don't think it's turned out as good as we wanted it to. We haven't had loads of time. Look at the state of the pitch last year. It was very difficult to keep maintaining that. So we have a full-time groundsman. Is that right now? During the week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's difficult, isn't it? We're not. I'm being respectful to the people that are looking after that pitch, and some of them I know well on match day. So I'm not going to point any fingers or anything like that. I think it's very difficult to maintain that pitch and get it to a standard that we need. But arguably, our home form is going to be massive this year, and if we've got a pitch that, to be fair, on Saturday looked like it had a few bare patches and bobbles, and yeah, I'm looking forward to playing away from home more.
The draw for the EFL Trophy was made yesterday morning, and as I've said earlier, details can be found on all our various social media outlets and our website 9yrspodcast.org. We don't really want to focus too much on the fixtures itself, more about the competition, because it's been a bit of a mess, to be honest with you. The announcement of the draw on Wednesday morning was the first we'd heard about the tournament in weeks. When it was first announced on the 10th of June, which was the same day as Euro 2016 began, almost an attempt to potentially bury some bad news or some unpopular news at least, full details at the time were said to be with us within 2 weeks. And of course, it's now been over a month until we've finally got a draw together. And it's a draw that features 16 Category 1 academy teams, not the first choice 16 of the Football League, I think it's safe to say. We're going to have a little bit of discussion about why this new format has been introduced, the reasons behind it, whether or not there's an ulterior motive longer term for the people in positions of power to get Premier League academy teams into this draw to get them to mix in with first teams from Leagues 1 and 2. We did ask to speak to a representative from the EFL. They said they would not be able or available to speak to us, which was fair enough. Not totally surprised about that. It was interesting, however, when it came to the announcement of the draw, the 16 academy teams were not announced until the actual draw was made. Something they were very keen to publicise, this idea of Premier League clubs getting involved, was then something that they didn't want to actually have to admit to the fact that a number of in fact, pretty much all of what you would consider the elite teams amongst those 16 rejected the opportunity. Maybe put a bit of a dampener on the idea for those chairmen that voted in favour of the idea. Let's start with those clubs that did, in fact, vote for and against. It was very interesting to note that clubs that voted for it were rather reticent in coming forward, and in fact a number of clubs still have yet to reveal whether they were in favour or not. Clubs that voted against, of course ourselves, obviously, included Luton, Portsmouth, Bristol Rovers, Accrington Stanley and Fleetwood Town, interestingly enough. Clubs that voted for it, however, included such teams as Crawley, Oxford, Walsall, Northampton, Wycombe, Coventry, and interestingly enough, Exeter, which I was a bit surprised at. But anyway, reasons for voting: Wycombe, for instance, and Coventry City, they put out statements explaining their reasons for voting, which was simply the increased revenue that this trophy is said to bring. And the introduction of the academy teams means that those clubs are going to be putting money into a fund, means prize money is going to be something like £10,000 a win in a group stage match. Winning the whole tournament should net you somewhere in the region of £1.5 million, apparently, or allegedly, because we still don't know exactly what's going to happen with different clubs coming in and out. Stu, were you surprised when you look at that list of clubs, especially with Exeter, that there was such a demand to bring these teams in under what seems to be just the idea that it's a revenue maker?
Yeah, I find it amazing in terms of how it all started. You know, you've gone through there very quickly on how it sort of transpired. But you know, we saw this on June the 10th. Like I say, it's the start of the Euro Championships, wasn't it? And it was, for me, when you hide something so obviously, when you hide bad news so badly as well, you start to wonder actually what was their motive. That's I think straight away from my point of view, the trust of the English Football League went because of disguising it so badly. And then now looking at the embarrassment of them trying to gather teams together to try and make up the 16. God forbid, you know, they made it very easy for this to go through. They lowered the rate to 75%, which wasn't voted on. There wasn't a vote to lower it. It was then, from what I understand, was ambushed at the annual meeting they have in the Algarve. So I don't believe, and I may be wrong, but from what I've read, I don't believe there was any prior notice that this was going to be discussed at the meeting. So everything that the English Football League done really has been amateurish and a little bit embarrassing. So clubs that voted against it, yeah, not surprised with that. There's a few there: Bolton, Pompey, Charlton, interesting one, because Charlton are in turmoil, aren't they, at the moment? So you'd have thought any chance of extra money their owners would have taken it, because they're not going to get through the gate this year the way they're going. Exeter worries me. You know, a fans' own club as such, and they voted to go for it. Wycombe, not a surprise. Let's be fair, Wycombe are struggling money-wise. Wycombe don't have an academy. They loan players in, so any money they can get, they would take. And yeah, it's disappointing. But I just have a real distrust on the English Football League, and I find it embarrassing that they went through Twitter on Tuesday talking about how they're going to promote the teams that joined as if it was some surprise. Well, there's only 24 Category 1 teams, so there's not a surprise who is going to be in it, because we know the ones that said no. And also, they seem to conveniently forget they've got no sponsor for this competition.
Yeah, and that's why I'm reading Coventry City's reasons for voting in favour, and we'll get to the reasons behind why this was brought up, why the academy teams were perhaps in favour of this. But let's concentrate on the clubs in Leagues 1 and 2 that have gone for it. They have talked about revenue. Coventry City have said it's the increased revenue from central funding, match day receipts, prize money which will be doubled, which is fair enough, that is true, TV money as well. Is there any guarantee these things are going to happen, though? As you say, there is no actual sponsor for this competition, so they haven't been able to attract a company to sponsor this, as is the case actually for a lot of the new EFL this season. The League Cup doesn't have a sponsor, as far as I'm aware at this moment in time, which is interesting in itself. Is it possible that it was very early days in June to have announced this and done things like that, but was it in the back of their mind that maybe sponsorship money was going to be an issue this year? TV money for this competition, which I cannot believe there's anything in that whatsoever. Do you think it's a preemptive thing where they've thought, get those academy teams in, and maybe we'll just generate a bit of extra income because of the extra interest it might benefit a competition that previously, when we've been at home in the early, especially those early rounds, 4 figures have been a bonus?
I don't know what the English Football League are thinking. They've rebranded this year as the English Football League. You've got a lovely logo. Lovely. If you look on the shirts this year, they're going to have a lovely new logo with League One, Championship. Sponsorship really concerns me because I think you and I could run the English Football League and get a sponsorship deal. You've got a championship that is arguably up for a total attendances is one of the top 5 in terms of accumulation, top 5 in the world. So if you're telling me you can't get a sponsorship when your main flagship is your championship division, then I find it amazing. So to not have a sponsor, are they literally trying to get too much money? I can't believe there's no interest because there should be sponsors literally knocking the door down. So I don't know what the English Football League are doing in that sort of side of it. The tendencies, we don't really know. The ruling is that you can have the invited club or the only clubs that want to turn up for it out of the normal League One and League Twos will have one home game. So they only allow one home game. Now, for argument's sake, if you look at the fixtures that could potentially have been before the draw was made, you could have had a West Ham. So Olympic Stadium. For argument's sake, you could have West Ham against us or West Ham against Millwall. That would have been an interesting one. That could attract 5, 6, 7,000 if they priced it right. So there could be a potential money earner there. But then you've also got in the northern section, you've got potential having a Scunthorpe against a Newcastle under 23s, and they're only one division apart this year. So I just don't see, the ruling. We're probably going to go on to a little while, but when they announced it, it was supposed to be for academies and under 21s. But conveniently, somewhere along the line, this is why I don't trust the English Football League. It's conveniently now. It's actually said you can have 5 first-team players, and they've actually noticed it for first team. So you can see all along what their motive is.
It doesn't actually make sense, though, to me whatsoever, this thing. So the eligibility rules are, for the invited clubs, so the Academy 16, 6 of the starting 11 are to be under 21, okay? So they really are trying to focus on their academy aspect of this, because for their reasons, this is all to do with player development for the England national team. That's the reasoning behind this, but we'll talk about that in more depth shortly. 6 of the starting 11 to be under 21, but not part of the 25-man first-team squad. So what you're saying is you've got room for 5 players that can be over 21, but they can't be part of the first-team squad. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There's also nothing about these academies that is specific to nationality. Okay? The way academies are done now, this all started a few years ago. As we know, the Elite Player Performance Plan was introduced. It was done so after a long consultation following our failure to qualify for Euro 2008. So you and I were both there that night, Stuart, Wembley, when we lost to Croatia.
We were.
That devastating night. And that was a horrible evening. And off the back of that, FA looked into things. They came up with this new scheme in conjunction with the Premier League, which was interesting because the Premier League actually didn't want to be part of the consultation process for this, which fascinates me, to be honest with you. This all stems from this. So they introduced all these different rules and regulations to make it easier for what they consider the elite players at younger ages to basically get fast-tracked to the top clubs. The idea being it's going to help out the England national team because they're going to get better training, best facilities, all these bits and pieces. Nothing to do with the idea of the fact that the best young talent can end up in the biggest clubs in the country for the cheapest possible fee, which is exactly what's happened. I think for ourselves, for instance, if we were to have a player under 18 that was highly rated and expected to go far in a game, we would get a maximum amount of £66,000 as a League One club if that player were to move on to a Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, exactly, okay? So this is all a bit of a nonsense. So why this ruling then about under 21s, first team squad numbers, all this sort of business, nothing has to do with players being English at all. So is there any logic behind that whatsoever? Or do you think this is basically a case of someone's had this brainwave of an idea for this competition, and they're throwing mud against the wall and just seeing what sticks?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It worries you who's actually running the Football League now, because surely if you put a proposal together, you have an idea of what you want to achieve. What's the objective? And I don't for 1 minute believe the objective is to improve the standard of English football or English players coming through. That can't be an objective because, as you've rightly said, there's nothing there that says about nationality. So if Chelsea, you look through their under-21 squad and you will struggle to see many English players in that under-21 squad. So one of the things that I know you and I are going to be doing straight away with this Football League trophy is the first round of fixtures, when they're allowed to play their under-21s, is actually count how many English players they got, or how many players that can qualify to play for the English national team. And I think after the first group of games, I think the English Football League are going to look very stupid, because that number's going to be very small. So I just think, it's a joke. The English, the fact that you can lose players now for next to nothing, we've sort of been, we've been on the wrong end of that a little bit, with Will Mannion, and we lost obviously Majay the year before. We've got decent deals, but let's be fair, Will Mannion at the moment is training with Hull's first team. Although, to be fair, the size of Hull's first team, he probably will be playing next.
He's captain.
We looked at, we're going to put Will Mannion. To be fair, Will Mannion would probably have struggled to get him out bench this year, in all due respects, because of his age, etc. And he could end up being part of the Premier League team. It'd be interesting if he gets named part of that 25-man squad as well. But there's a lot to be said about this thing. I just think the objective. I don't think they had an objective. I think they have a hidden objective, which is the B teams. But I've read something on Tuesday night where Richard Scudamore was saying there's no end game to this in terms of just dripping this in. This is it. We're not interested in B teams. Although he did conveniently say in the interview that he did note that B teams works in other countries, but wouldn't suit the English structure. So he has left himself a little bit of a get-out clause there. But
Richard Scudamore, who has said that Premier League B teams in the English Football League system are not on the agenda, they're not going to happen. He's definitely dead against it. Right, well, he can say that, but we've had these discussions many times before about a variety of subjects. We've had the 39th game, for instance. No, never going to happen. Well, it was on the agenda. It was very much being moved to happen. Winter break again has come up again over the last week or so. Discussions about the need for this, which again we were told, no, it's not going to happen purely because of money reasons. Again, interestingly enough, all these things come up for considered the betterment of the England team. This seems to be the propaganda that we're past, and it is an absolute nonsense. I'm really sorry to say. I'm not sorry to say. It's an absolute nonsense. Sean Harvey, the EFL chief executive, in his statement, he could not be on the podcast, so we'll have to go with the statements he's put out publicly on their website. He said the new format of this competition is intended to rejuvenate this competition, so he does start with that, to be fair, and also assist the development of the very best young players in English football. This will help us deliver more and better homegrown players, which will deliver benefits to the national team and domestic league football at all levels. An anonymous Premier League spokesman added that the overriding aim of the Elite Player Performance Plan, which we mentioned earlier, across English Football League, is to produce more and better homegrown players capable of performing at first team and international levels. None of this is going to happen, okay? So reasons, I'm going to ignore everything they've said there. Therefore, I'm probably going to ignore Richard Scudamore as well. I will say, for me, there is an idea of rejuvenating this competition. They've tried before to rejuvenate this competition. Many years ago, they put conference teams in here, in the Johnson Plate Trophy, to try and draw up a bit of interest. But it's a competition that has always been exactly what it is. Like 20 years ago, when we were in the Premier League, I had mates that go down to Fulham, and they would go home and away to Fulham. But LDV Vans Trophy, or whatever it was called at the time, no interest in it whatsoever. And that's not changed. I don't think attendances have gone up or down over those 20 years. They've stayed where they are. I don't think anything is going to change this competition in the status of the general public or people until it gets to the semi-finals in Wembley and then people take an interest in it. I don't think there's anything that needs fixing. It is what it is. So really, I can't see this as anything more as a backdoor opening to say we want Premier League teams to have B teams in a Football League system. Therefore, they can start to monopolise competitions. We can eventually sort to wear away this, which to be fair, we probably do have too many football teams, football clubs, football divisions in this country. It probably is unsustainable for the most part over a long spell of time. Okay. But eventually what you're probably going to be looking at is then wanting to reduce the league structure, which again is something that's in the offing as well. And then you have your elite clubs that will always be your elite clubs. No room for promotion or relegation. Everyone stays where they are, protect their spots, continue their dominance of English football.
You're right about in terms of they tried many, many different things. I was just being nosy to see actually because we spoke to Eddie Aziz last week, didn't we?
And Eddie Aziz, his younger, more talented brother.
And obviously they tried this year having their cup competition starting as a pre-season tournament.
Yes.
I'm just trying to be nosy actually, see what the attendances are. Well. And I'm trying to think very quickly. Maybe as I'm talking you can find them, but I'm just curious to see what the attendances are because Is that maybe an idea? Do you know what I mean, to rejuvenate? The problem is you start in a cup competition on top of the football cup, of the League Cup as well. So, whilst as I'm saying I love the football, I can appreciate in August when there's holidays and you've got parents who are taking the kids away, coming back. They've got loads of games. You look at how many games we're going to have in the start of the season, you're going to pick and choose your games. So that's probably why the Football League Trophy doesn't do as well. So maybe it could be a pre-season tournament and, having a local game against Crawley, for argument's sake, or something like that. But I find what the gentleman says on the Football League interesting because it's just a mission statement. It's a mission statement that we all have in companies, but underneath that is when your objectives then sort how you're going to achieve that. And that's where it just falls apart. Because to say we've got this aim of that, well, how are you going to achieve that? Because at the moment, the FA can't stipulate a requirement on how many English-born players or how many English-eligible players should be in the Premiership, because Richard Scudamore won't allow that, or he'll throw his toys out of the pram and take it abroad. So I'm just checking attendances actually. So I'm just checking attendances, and I thought Partick Thistle will become my second team now. That's really quite sad, isn't it?
Patrick Thistle.
Patrick Thistle. But they got 2,358 for their game against Queen of the South.
That's not bad.
That's not bad for a pre-season cup competition.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I quite like the idea, even though Aziz didn't know actually how the tournament works himself, but to be fair, that's why we've got officials doing it. That's an idea to beef up the English Football League Trophy, isn't it? Not just put B teams, under 23s, under 21s.
Under 21s, at least 6 of them have to be, but 5 of them have to be first teamers that can't be the first team.
And also remember, a goalkeeper doesn't. They can have an overage goalkeeper as well.
Is that in the rules?
Yeah, they completely missed that out. Unless that's been changed. In one of the early rules, they did have a maximum of 5, but the goalkeeper can also be overaged as well. So that might have been missed out.
See, none of this makes any sense anymore. It's just, who knows? Anyway, we wait to see what comes of the EFL Trophy. Obviously, fixtures are being put together now. Keep your eye on our social media for updates and that. But join in the conversation. What do you think? Will you be attending? Let's go for that angle. Will you be attending any of the EFL Trophy games?
But the attendances wise, it'd be interesting what the attendances are. The club stance will be quite interesting. I think Eric stayed away from it. His programme notes for the Reading and Palace was very much a disappointment, but didn't say how the pricing is going to be. How are we going to take it seriously? There's nothing really of that. I suppose. Is it a case of once you're in it? We've voiced our opinion, so we've done that. It wasn't, we weren't with the majority. So do we now go? All right, it's here now. We're trying, do as much as we can. It's very difficult to know how we're going to do it. My personal opinion is, and I've said this quite openly to the guys, is I don't like it at all, and I'm really not interested in the games. But as part of a 9-year podcast team, our job is to comment, and have an opinion on games. So I will go, but to be honest with you, I get no interest of watching a West Ham beating. Although being very hypocritical, if we got West Ham in the Olympic Stadium, I probably would go. That's
fair enough. I get the idea if you want to go and see the Olympic Stadium and stuff like that. But I would say to you, I have no interest in this competition whatsoever. Okay, so I won't be attending any of these games. I don't think, Stu, if you've got no interest in it, don't go. I don't think, unless we get anyone listening that feels strongly in the opposite direction, if we weren't to mention the existence of this competition, I don't know how many people would care. I guess the difference being I think there'd be certain exceptions, okay? Playing against a certain team from Buckinghamshire would always bring up issues, okay? Obviously. Playing at Wembley in the final, should we get there, would bring up an issue. But are we that I'm not fussed.
No, it's simple, and that's why I want to see what the pricing is. From my point of view, I'm not interested in the actual tournaments. I think the tournament's a joke now. And I used to like, you know me well, I used to like the Johnson Paint Trophy in its format. I used to like the fact because sometimes you get some under-21 players come into it from our squad, and you see how and also the start of the season, you get loads of games, and for me, I like the fact of Saturday midweek, and I like that early start. So I used to love the Johnson Paint Trophy. It was also decided after 90 minutes, and that. I probably will. Part of me thinks I probably will go because I will see part of our under-21s, and I'm very much keen to see how our under-21s will progress this year because I will probably go to quite a few of their home games at Merstham. So that's probably the thing that would attract me. But the fact that we're going to be playing a a Swansea isn't really going to. That's not what's going to make you want to go as a fan. And I can't talk for the fan base, but I think that's going to be very similar to a lot of fans in England League 2 and League 1 this year.
Time for Poleon Go, our brand new game, which got last week on Twitter. We did a poll, as I said we would, on how the new game was received by our listening public. And I can tell you now, Stu, that Poleon Go received a 0% disapproval rating.
Happy days.
Yeah, it got about 12% approval rating, and everyone else didn't seem to care. But we're going to persist it anyway with this week. So Poleon Go, here we go.
Right.
It does. Not going to lie, this music, with the second week in, I'm not sure how long this is going to last because it's already beginning to irritate me. But we'll see. Right, so Dominic Poleon has landed somewhere at a football league ground, somewhere in the country. I am going to describe his movements. And Stu has to try and guess whereabouts or which football stadium he has arrived at. Okay, so I'm going to try and do this in a narrative way. I think this game's going to be very fluid, to use a business term, which I hate to use, but it's going to be, we're going to try different things with it. So I'm going to try and describe to you what's happened as Dominic Poleon has travelled to this football league ground, okay?
Okay.
So first things first, Dominic Poleon has found himself at London St Pancras International, and he is about to board a train, an East Midlands train, to his destination. Okay, that's your first clue.
I would go for knowing that route. I would go for Nottingham.
Okay. Right, that's your first guess. Which one do you want to go for? Or are you going to just keep your options open with Nottingham at the minute?
Yeah, my instinct says Nottingham Forest at the moment.
Okay.
On the first clue.
Okay, well, Dominic's obviously got on the train. He's got off the train at his destination. Quick walk to the stadium, and you can see it in the distance. And just as he's getting to the main entrance, he's just walking past a statue of a pair of very successful past employees of this football club. One statue, two people.
One statue, two employees? That's bugging me up.
Okay.
No, can't think.
No? No? Don't want to revise your...
Employees? It don't go up as far as Hartlepool, does it? Morecambe, sorry. No, it doesn't go up as far as Morecambe.
No, but employees is quite a broad term, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't think Aaron Morecambe is, but actually... No, it's just him on there, isn't it? It's not two people.
Yeah, you see. So
yeah, I can't think of anything.
Okay, so third clue then?
Yep, please.
So Dominic, he kept on walking. He's making his way to the stadium entrance, and there's a little... I can't say this word. Plaque? Either or. It says above the main entrance, opened in 1997. About to host its 20th season of football.
1997?
From an East Midlands train past a statue of two very important people to a stadium...
I'm trying to think, did I go
opened in 1997.
I'm thinking of Leicester City.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, but I'm not convinced, because I did go to the opening of the Leicester City. They had Barcelona in a friendly. I went to it. I can't think it was 1997. I don't think it was. No, Leicester City. I'm not good. I'm stumped me.
It would be very interesting to see if anyone knows this or knows the answer to this. If you did get it before we revealed it, please let us know on Twitter at 9YRS Podcast. I will reveal it though, however, for you, Stu. Now, it was in fact Pride Park, Derby County. And you were so close with Nottingham to begin with. I thought, he's on the right lines here. He'll get this.
Well, let's be fair. That route goes through Leicester, Nottingham, Derby. It goes through quite a few.
It does go through to quite a few. But do you know who the statue is outside the stadium then?
Derby got anyone they can put in a statue?
Stu, when I say it, you're going to...
Brian Clough?
And who would he be with?
His other sidekick. I can't think of his name. Taylor, wasn't it?
Yeah, there we go. Peter Taylor.
Have they really got a statue of them two?
No, I made it up for the purpose. Of course they do, yeah.
But they've done the best jobs for Nottingham Forest. That's which their rivals.
Yeah, but they first did it at Derby, didn't they? Didn't they get promoted and then win the league in consecutive seasons?
Yeah, but then they done the best. But then they done the proper job and not Forest.
Well, then they did the European Champions
back to back, did they?
Yeah, right.
It's like us having some heroes of people who went on to Palace and done better at Palace or something. You can't do that.
I'm gonna say.
Can't give anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't think of anyone right now. But
okay.
There you go. Opening
close-
97,
it's
Stu. Do you know who was the first team to play at that stadium?
I know we weren't far off it because I went to the game.
What happened? Yeah, what happened?
The lights went out.
Yeah, the lights went out.
Yeah, because I remember trying to go to the toilet at the dock.
You struggled to do that in daylight, to be fair.
Yeah, I remember very well because I went up on a coach. It was midweek. They were taking the mick out of the fact that we had no ground, and all of a sudden the lights went out.
Of course, yeah.
We went. I think there was temporary lighting, so we tried to go down the stairs and go to the toilet. Then the game got called off, and I remember it vividly because they had Joe Kinnear, who was our manager at the time, was live on Derbyshire radio, and basically just laughed at the reporters about they couldn't get their floodlights working. So it was quite funny.
It was. And then eventually when the game was replayed, do you know what the score was? I actually know the result, I'm so sad.
Did we get hammered up there? Was it the 4-0 thing?
No, it wasn't the 4-0 that time. That was in 2000, I think. I think it was a 1-1 draw when it was replayed. So there you go.
I probably went to it, but it's so long ago. I only remember the wins, really.
Yeah, it's about 20 years ago. It's scary, isn't it?
1996. Oh, okay. 97.
Yeah.
It is, and to be fair, that was the first time that. And when I remember when we went there, it was it's on basically the old typical industrial.
Yeah.
They built like a new industrial estate. I say that it's what we're going to have anyway, isn't it? Something like that. But I remember it because nothing was built. It was like Bolton as well. Basically, nothing had been built. It was just a football ground, and there was nothing else that had been built around it.
No, but then there were companies that were falling over themselves to get into the Bolton business park, weren't they?
And look where that ended up.
There we go. Right, sort of bringing us to the end of this week's show, but I want to say next week we'll be doing our pre-season preview show, okay? So on the Thursday before Walsall, on the Saturday, we'll do our pre-season preview, including all our predictions. However, on the Friday then, the 5th of August, our website will have the predictions from all the podcast team for the forthcoming season. So all of us that work on the podcast, Stu, myself, Brother Chris, Paul Raymond, George Jones, we'll be doing our predictions of who we think will win League One, who will be runners-up, which 4 teams will make the playoffs, which 4 teams will go down, where we'll finish in the league, and which team will finish in 14th place, which is the most important thing, of course. There might be some duplicates in those final 2 positions, but, we'll play it by ear and see how it goes. If you're interested to give us your predictions, please do so. All the information I've put out there on our social media, but you can submit your predictions via Facebook. So search for our Facebook page, facebook.com/9YRS podcast, or email us at 9YRS@may14.co.uk. As I say, all the details are on all our social media, Twitter, Instagram, everything. Okay, so have a look out for those. If you want to get involved, send them to us before 11:59pm, and I have to do it that way because I always get a bit confused. When you say midnight, I'm never sure whether I give that midnight on the 3rd or midnight on the 4th. I don't know. So we go for 11:59pm on Thursday the 4th, all right? And then we'll put them up on our website. Thought it'd be interesting at this point then to have a quick look at last season's predictions. As a sort of a preview to our preview show, I had to look back and looked at Stu's predictions for last season.
Oh dear.
So Stu, do you have any memories of what you said would happen last season?
Well, I know I'm very optimistic, so I reckon I pretty said we'd go up with a house.
Sadly, no, you didn't say that.
Did I not?
No, you didn't.
That's what I meant.
Of course you did. Let's go through them then. Let's start off with 2 teams you thought would be...
No, I remember now, because I said how badly Oxford and that would do.
Yeah, we both did, to be fair.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, happy with the first person sacked.
We'll come on to that one shortly. Let's start with the relegated teams. You predicted the 2 teams to go down would be Newport County.
Okay.
But then you said York City.
Ah!
Well done. I'm
Sorry.
impressed.
The surprise in that, but my microphone just fell over.
I thought that was you falling over.
Yeah, no, the microphone. I was just, happy days. See, I do know what I'm talking about sometimes.
Well, it gets even better for you, Stu, because you actually announced that the following clubs would not be promoted. You said that teams that would definitely not go into League One at the end of the season would be Crawley, Notts County, Yeovil, and Leyton Orient.
See?
As the 4 teams that had been relegated from League One the previous year, you thought none of them would go straight back up, which was a bit of a first, because normally at least one of them does.
Yeah, but they were all in trouble at the time. I'm quite pleased with that.
So well done. Let's get to the 3 teams you thought would be promoted then automatically.
Oh dear.
Let's run through these very, very quickly. Luton Town, Cambridge United,
Oh no.
Portsmouth.
Oh, what was it? Well, okay. Pompey was the only club that was close to that.
Yes.
But that's probably because I listened to you too much about how good Luton has signed on their players.
Well, they had signed great players. They just didn't quite gel as a team under
John Steele.
John Steele, yes, who then ended up getting relegated. Dagenham and Richmond. Top scorer, Mark Richards at Northampton.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in fact Matty Taylor at Bristol Rovers.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got 27, I think.
Mark Richards must have been what, second or third?
He was up there.
Yeah.
I think Lara might have just edged him out with the playoffs in the end.
Yeah.
First manager sacked, finally, you did indeed say it would be Michael Appleton at Oxford. It was, in fact, Terry Butcher of Newport County, who was sacked quite late, I think, when you consider what normally happens on October the 1st.
Yeah, I thought because their budget was rubbish anyway, they would have just given him a bit more time because no one else would take the job, which is why he took it. And then he ended up getting John Sheridan in, who pretty much saved them, didn't he? That's right, he did, yes, and then left now, hasn't
he? I think he has now.
Yeah.
I don't know who they've got in charge now.
We don't care, it's League Two. That sounded really shallow then, didn't it? No, of course we care.
No. Let's just correct what you said there, sir. We don't care because they're Welsh.
They're Welsh, yes, they're Welsh.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible town.
Yeah, what, Wales?
Oh.
Yeah, it's just a small town in Cheshire, isn't it? By the way, as bad as England were at Euro 2016, we did beat Wales, by the way.
I still remember going to Newport this season trying to find somewhere that looked really nice and just go and eat, and it took us about half hour to find anywhere that looked like it had windows.
Didn't take you half an hour, Stuart. It took you 2 hours on the coach back to London.
Oh, that's a rough place, that is, Newport.
Yeah, it really, really is. It really is. All right, look forward to that then next week, our preview show for the forthcoming 2016-2017 season with a very special guest who we'll announce over the course of the next week. Reaction from our two friendlies then this week, Woking away, Dagenham and Richmond away on all our social media, 9yrspodcast.org from reaction from the Crystal Palace friendly on Wednesday night as well. Thank you very much, Stu.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. Join us next week. We'll be joined by our new signing, Bobby Zamora, and he'll be discussing what made him join the Dons. We'll see you then.